This is part 2 of the history of experience. Last time we have dealt with the stargazer story and one dimension of personal history. The stargazer story is my personal history that initiated my interest in experience. It was like an impulse that set, sort of a command, go after that. It's really strange, it's interesting. And there was another impulse about 1 year later, which is linked to the tree of knowledge, which is a story, not my personal, but a story from the Bible. And that's where we are going next. This is part of more general history, because this is a story that many people know about. I got in touch with this story in my pastor's confirmation class about 1 year after the Stargazer event. Pastor Stork would have us tell our personal stories as well as read the stories from the Bible to get us acquainted with the history of the world. So we started with the creation, and here you see in that picture the church, the parish church, where somewhere in the background, in the basement, we were reading these stories. The story that is of interest here is from Genesis 2:8 to Genesis 3:24. And it's a story of the fall from grace and the expulsion from paradise. But to my project, there's only a certain part relevant, and I want to go a little bit deeper into that. Just recall the setting. So here we have a picture by Lucas Cranach, which is quite interesting because it summarizes the entire story within one framework of one picture. So here we have, where is it? Here in the background there is Adam being created. Here you see God drawing Eve from Adam's rib. Here they are talking to the snake. Here they are getting a command. And here they are expelled from paradise. So the entire story within one picture. The part that I'm interested in is the part about the encounter of Eve and Adam with a snake. So here we have them sitting in paradise, and Eve has just taken the fruit and shares it with Adam. So they both eat from that fruit. In the background, you see the snake watching the two eating. Here it's a sort of a human top and a snake-like back. Here's the scenery of the paradise, and here our parents, Adam and Eve. And then the story goes on with a very interesting change of scenery. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. That's what we have here in the next situation. So what we have here is another shift in experience. Before that, they were sort of lost in sensation, looking outside, and in the next situation, due to the forbidden fruit, they turn their awareness to themselves and look at themselves and say, oh, we are naked. So this is said by the phrase, the eyes were opened. It's really strange. It's just a metaphor because the eyes were opened all the time, but they didn't see everything. This is typical for being enshrouded by experience because we don't see everything all the time. And they were not aware of themselves. So it was something like another turn from external awareness to self-awareness. At that time, in that confirmation class, he reminded me of my own experience a year ago. But actually, I wouldn't know how to make sense of that. It was another strong impulse to get myself interested in what is experience. Now we have to go into some more details about what the story tells us. Because the first part of the story was my personal history, the Stargazer event. The Stargazer event is only relevant for me. I learned from my parents that this happens to many people at the same time of age, when you're about 11, 12, 13 years old. But what we see here in the biblical story, in the Bible, is that this was something that had happened all through history, because we are here at the beginning of the world. So our first parents already have lived through a change in awareness. So this is a universal part of history. However, I myself, though I noticed there was something interesting going on, it was not really clear to me. At that time, I was preoccupied with many different other things. I was madly in love for the first time. I'm very unhappy because I was too shy. I had to do my homework for the gymnasium. I had to prepare for the final exams. The issue came up again about 10 years later when I was reading the major works of Eric Voegelin, one of my university teachers, who I met in Bochum and in Munich, and later on in Stanford. Here he is, the year when he left Europe to retire at Stanford campus. He was born in Cologne in 1901 and died in Stanford at 1985. There's something very interesting about what he taught me. And now my focus was on political theory and the history of ideas. And the general approach to the history of ideas is that you just study history of ideas, namely ideas. So where are ideas? Ideas are in books. So what the history of ideas turns you into is a bookworm. But he would say, and he started that in one of his major works of the series called Order and History, he would say, where do all these ideas come from? They don't, come from books. Finally, they all have to come from some experience. So actually what we have to do is not study ideas, but we have to go back to the experience that generates these ideas. And that is why he started a re-evaluation of personal experience, which usually don't play a large role in scientific approaches. Your personal experience, like my Stargazer episode, is private. But science is public. So you leave out the private part and go to the public part. But the public part, in that case, is only books, ideas. And he said, no, we have to start with our personal experience to find out how experience motivates us to look at ideas. And that's what had happened to me. I had an experience with the stars and my self-awareness, and that forced me to look at what experience means. And from then on, that was the initial spark, from then on, getting me on a path pursuing the issue of what is experience. And due to his teaching, I started writing a journal and took notes, and one of these notes was the story of the Stargazer. This actually initiates a true paradigm shift, going away from the history of ideas and turning towards a history of experience, and that's where my own project started. We come to that next again when I talk about the road to a new paradigm, but this will be part of our part 3 of the series. Thank you for today.